So we got all the mould here, which I've tried to clean myself.
Disrepair, damp and damage run throughout the property that Jenny has been living in for 6 years with her 2 sons, often leaving windows open to help with ventilation and sleeping in jackets.
I've emptied this bucket about 3 times since yesterday afternoon.
This South London estate overlooks iconic skyscrapers and consists of over 2,000 flats, mostly occupied by those living in temporary accommodation. Over 95,000 people were living in temporary accommodation across England at the end of last year. A report by Shelter found a direct link between poor housing and poor mental health. Over half of adults surveyed were suffering with depression, and children were over 3 times more likely to demonstrate mental health problems. We've come to this estate to meet 2 women who exemplify this linked crisis.
But this is the bed that the boys and me sleep on.
Okay. Jenny and her children often share a bed together as mould has completely damaged most of their furniture. She regularly checks the weather forecast to plan accordingly, because when it rains outside, it pours inside and insects fall through.
They've woke up screaming because the
raining in the room
and their beds are soaked. And I've had to get them up, put them in the bath, because I don't know what the stuff that's coming down on there. I've had to put them in the bath at 3 o'clock in the morning, knowing that they've got school in the next day.
Living with depression, she believes that the constant concern of not knowing what she might come home to next and worrying about her children's health heightens her anxiety.
The boys will come in here when I'm cooking dinner, and I'll shout at them to get out because I won't let them in here. Because I think to myself, I'm breathing in sin, I don't need you to breathe it in, because if they end up being sick, I don't know what I would do. Because of the whole depression and everything, and I've been feeling low and how the house is, I don't let anyone in the house at all.
And your kids are not allowed to
bring anyone round? No. But I don't even let them go to anyone else's house, because I'm worried that they are not going to be... They're going to see someone else's house, go and say, why ain't we got that? And then it will get me so upset. I just don't... Yeah, it's something I'm not prepared to go through that.
You don't want anyone to, in case they smell of mould?
Mould.
Jenny has contacted her housing officer multiple times with no major resolution, and says she is unable to give them access during school runs or her working hours, which she cannot afford to lose. Have you been offered other properties by the council?
We got offered another temporary accommodation, but in a place just across the road, which we asked them, is there a possibility that there's going to be the same issues? And they couldn't promise that it wouldn't be.
Across the estate, over 6 floors up, Raquel lives with depression and her 5-year-old daughter. Isolated and frightened, with many of the other neighbouring flats on her floor boarded up. Drug dealers, drug users and trespassers in the corridors are a regular occurrence. Despite having reported this to her housing officer.
We have a certain time of the night that we don't go out anymore. We, by 8, especially winter is 5, yeah? I used to take the stairs to some exercise. I stopped because I always meet people there. And always, sometimes negotiate, say, please, 8th floor, 7th floor, 6th floor is empty. Can you please do it there so my little one will not see?
And this is taking drugs, you mean?
Yeah.
Raquel was offered another place, which had damp, and wasn't prepared to take her daughter with underlying health issues, so she declined to move. The process of moving to another temporary accommodation has left her feeling helpless.
This moving house stuff, it's for a little while they don't tell you anything. Sorry, I'm getting so cross. A little while they don't get you anything, and then they start bombarding you again, and it's just like, what the hell you want me to do? They're stressing you to the limit because you don't have a voice, you don't have a choice. You have to say yes just because you are homeless.
If we see rising levels of homelessness, housing insecurity, and particular reliance on temporary accommodation over the next period, this is going to put pressure on people's mental health, adults and children. And that's on top of the 10 million people we're projecting will need support for their mental health as a direct result of the pandemic.
A spokesperson for Southwark Council told us,
Southwark Council, like many London authorities, is under immense pressure to tackle the housing crisis, with a significant and dwindling lack of funding from central government to provide social housing and to maintain existing stock. We are fully supporting all of our tenants, and where there are maintenance issues, we are addressing them. Our ageing stock is expensive to run and maintain and will cost a lot to meet new safety requirements as well as making greener. The rent does not cover it.
But for Jenny and Raquel, who are facing an uncertain future, the prospect of finding somewhere for their families to call home hangs in the balance of a mental health and housing crisis.